this section, we're going to get started looking at the multiplication rule of probability. So let's just go over kind of an introduction to what we're going to be looking through in this section. When we're looking at the multiplication rule of probability, we're using this to find the probability of any event A occurring followed by a second event B. And we're looking at the possibility that the outcome event A has the potential to alter the probability of event B. So, well, an example of this would be looking at example number 19 on page 166. So here we're looking at two different events. So we have got a 2% rate of disk failure across a year. So we're looking at if we have all of our data stored on a hard drive disk and a copy of all of it stored on a second hard drive disk, what is the probability that we would lose all of our data during a year? So since we're looking at all of our data, that's the thing that's connecting these two different probabilities, and we got finite over across a year, we still have these two events that we will be looking at together. Now, in some instances, we find that event A does not affect the outcome of event B, but we need to be able to consider that because we are still looking at these two events are connected together. So this is an example, we're looking at number 19 of the kind of problem that we'll be solving in this section. So the first step in doing this, of course, is being able to identify when you're going to need to use the multiplication rule. So, similar to when we looked at previously at the addition rule, you need to pay attention to the language in the problem. Here, we're paying attention to the use of the word and. So, when we use the word and in general language, again, we tend to think of addition. So putting two things together, A and B. However, in statistical language, this means something very different. So, when we say the probability of event A and B, and they're put together in these parentheses, what we are asking about is the probability of event A occurring in the first trial and the event B occurring in the second trial. So we've got two different events that we are looking at, and we're looking at them occurring in a consecutive order. So we've got event A in the first trial and event B in the second trial. This will be presented in this example you see here. So this type of thing will be described as the probability of event B slash A. Now notice this is an upright slash. Do not use a diagonal slash because that's a division. So when we're looking at this problem, this translates out into being the probability of event B occurring after it is assumed event A has already occurred. So this is separate than just probability of event B. We are now interested in the probability of event B occurring after it is assumed that event A has already occurred. So when we're looking at this, the formula for the probability of A and B, our multiplication rule of probability, is going to be the probability of A, since that occurs first and it's not affected by order for the consecutive order, times the probability of B following A. So this is the multiplication rule probability formula that we'll be using in this section. So if we take this and we apply this, let's go back and look at our example we have for number 19, looking at the losing all of our data if we have it stored on two different hard drives. So if we were applying this formula to their problem, what we would have would be the probability that hard drive 1 fails and the probability that hard drive 2 fails. This would come out to be the probability that hard drive 1 fails times the probability that hard drive 2 fails after hard drive 1 has already failed. So, when we're looking at these types of problems, hopefully my spacing these out here will help you look at an example problem, such as number 19, and then look at how do you take those components and connect them back with the multiplication rule of probability. Here we can see our P of A, which is a hard drive failing, so that's hard drive 1 failing, and then we can see our probability of B after A occurs. So that is the probability of hard drive 2 failing after hard drive 1 has already failed. So this should give you a general introduction to what we're looking at. The next tutorial you want to move forward and look at is going to be translating multiplication rules of probability to make sure that you can move comfortably between descriptions such as the paragraph below and then looking at what's presented in a formula or working your way backwards. So be sure to go over that tutorial to make sure that you are able to understand what the problem is asking for you before you start solving. Please notice that if you are getting your order of events swapped, so they're in the wrong order, you will be able to do the rest of the formula correctly, but you will still get the incorrect answer. So make sure you pay attention to that short but important section on translating probability multiplication rule problems.